Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 06. The definitive passage for both air and food. The brake pedal in new vehicle. International Forum to discuss trade problems. The equatorial region. No sign of abating. The dome of the sky. He gave me an ambiguous answer. She was at the age of 20, full of zeal and love. A medieval castle. Arabian lore. They survived with a shoestring budget. Poachers are hunting rhinos in an overt way. Ordinary forgetfulness is natural and human. How is selective amnesia treated? The party misjudged the mood of the populace. Automatism and dynamism in the machine. To scrutinize all evidence. Frequent instances of machine failure. A very conspicuous spot. Fending off the midges. Do you use the term chubby hubby or honey bunny to call your husband? A whirlwind romance started at their first meet. My lack of willpower crippled me. She is naturally petite. News makes your heart flutter. To cut back on sugar. The statements is logically consistent. Wording of requirements. Audit engagements are underway. A surefire defense. Act with due diligence. Means of communication. A man of short stature. A domineering husband. It provoked indignation. An angry outburst from the Prime Minister. He didn't turn a hair. He gets my goat. He was beside himself. He went beyond his power. He will go far. Juvenile delinquency. Britain's nuclear arsenal. The tempestuous whirl. Monasteries and hermitages. He bonds with his friend. Until the compact expires. Vineyards. The naval commander. Her piercing analysis. Fleas infest the animal. Palace in miniature. Fabulous cars. The inherited traditions. She is very distraught. She is showing her pregnancy bump. Incisors and canines. It began to rend them apart. Apprentice businesswoman. She giggled mischievously. To top up her glass of red wine. She bumped into her family. To conceal her modesty. Degrading treatment. Adolescent angst. A phantom limb. Amassing huge debt. Hefty finance charges. The percussion instruments like a drum. I feel very homesick. Business proposition to start a school. Speculate to accumulate. Coin tossing probabilities. Don't go overboard. Dizziness and nausea. Utensils and cutlery. Livening things up. She had her hair in a messy ponytail. Ditched in the ocean. Prices are hampering home sales. The gambler cast the dice. He was a redeemed captive. Who's his main squeeze? To stamp out racism. The rain fell steadily. What's your shoe size? I knew her slightly. A slight breeze was blowing. The nitty-gritty of the matter. 3 weeks stint. Plenty of intonation. The marshalling supervisor. A precision work. Vaulting horse. Life behind bars is so hard. She drove in the fast lane. The city could sell recyclables at a profit. 2 teams needed to play the tug of war. A chilly overcast day. A medieval dungeon. He wanted to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. Hair with a healthy gloss. A truly exquisite work. How to tackle truancy in schools. A visitation of the plague. The fire blazed merrily. She is to sue the baby's father. An aspirant to the throne. He talks gibberish. Non-disclosure agreement. The moral predicament. She is a pro-life activist. He became partially paralyzed. The journey is slightly uphill. A compact cluster of houses. That is why she deserves our pity. Exercise due professional care. This drug can cause drowsiness. From the cradle to the grave. The party had begun to splinter into factions. A splinter of ice. To concede all the territory he'd won. I had to concede that I had overreacted. He suddenly slumped into unconsciousness. The two sides are to resume talks. Addressing women's emancipatory projects. The eclipses portend some major events. He stapled a batch of papers together. The staple foods of the poor. His decision to call a snap election. Chopping into a chips. Chipping into a chips. Huge chunks of masonry littered the street. He had to restrain his impatience. A tea strainer. Women emancipated from family constraints. Keep your hands off me. That is the inoffensive side of the story. Begin when I give the command. You must obey the captain's commands. What is the startup command for the program? He has 1,000 men under his command. The army was sent in to crush the rebellion. She felt completely crushed by the teacher's criticism. She bowed her head in shame. Cook the broth until it starts to bubble. He bowed low to the assembled crowd. The people all bowed down before the emperor. They stood in silence with their heads bowed. He was chopping logs for firewood. Add the finely chopped onions. Chop the carrots up into small pieces. Beat the eggs and sugar together. Flagrantly objectifying women. I have a toothache because of a cavity. Have you bathed the baby yet? Water purification tablets. The man fired several shots from his pistol. She slung the bag over her shoulder. Unfortunately, the bank is shut now. To lose your sight or to become blind. The disease has affected her sight. Drivers are advised to seek alternative routes. They sought in vain for somewhere to shelter. We have sought legal advice. I think that's a very sensible idea. Concrete is a mixture of sand and cement. Very small fine grains of rock. A squeeze of lemon juice. It's just a bit of harmless fun. Her deep hatred of her pal was obvious. He looked at me with intense hatred. A profound hatred of war. The cut healed up without leaving a scar. Her hair hung down to her waist. A cigarette hung from her lips. The glass was half full. Hang your coat on the hook. We hung her portrait above the fireplace. The bacteria is harmless to humans. You are capable of better work than this. The theater has a seating capacity of 2,000. The capture of enemy territory. They were filled with remorse and shame. It's rumored that he lives on a houseboat. He is endeavoring to help the Third World. She hesitated before replying. The crust has a constant density. The circumnavigation of the globe. Exact replica. The nebulous notes. The house is infested with cockroaches. Quite frankly, I don't blame you. Time and again. The economy has started to emerge from recession. Certain themes emerge in the poems. He amalgamated his company with another. A spate of attacks on holidaymakers. Bookmaking firms. Ferocious spates of rioting. A cloying story. Miss America pageant. Lack of personal hygiene and lack of dentistry. They lived in squalor and disease. The end. Coming next. Session 07.